Hospitality Meets is brought to you by RotaCloud, the simple workforce management software for hospitality teams. RotaCloud lets you create and share rotas, record attendance, and manage your team's annual leave, all in less time than it takes to make a brew. It can also make life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request holiday, and even pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be. Welcome to Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street, where each week we take a light-hearted look into the stories and individuals that make up the wonderful world of hospitality. Today's guest is John Badley, Chief Executive Officer at Andrew Brownsword Hotels. Coming up on today's show, John needs an unexpected break.
I need to go to the toilet. Where do I go?
Phil is a bit harsh on John. You can be a nightmare to go out for dinner with, I have learned. And John recounts one particularly problematic mistake.
We did it, and then we did a U-turn about 1.5 days later.
All that and so much more as we chat through John's superb story so far. Getting some time with John was awesome. He's got a cracking story, some fabulous lessons, and gold all the way through. So please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a like and a share wherever you can. Enjoy! And a huge Hospitality Meets welcome to John Badley.
Hi Phil, thanks for having me.
You're very, very welcome. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Pleasure to be here. I still pinching myself a little bit of a KP at heart who's just been given a few opportunities, I guess, in life. So it feels a little bit unreal to be here answering some of your questions.
Well, I mean, you've just highlighted why you're here in that one little ditty, because that's the sort of story that it's not an uncommon story. In fact, in hospitality, you've got to start somewhere, and that takes you on in any kind of direction. So yes, we will get into that in the fullness of time, but we should probably tell the world what it is that you actually do now.
Yeah, so I'm fortunate enough to be CEO for Andrew Brownsword Hotels. So we have 12 hotels across the UK and some absolutely remarkable properties, incredible team, and just giving people the best hospitality that we can in fantastic industry.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you have got some iconic properties under your guard. And I was just last weekend, I was in Lower Slaughter and Upper Slaughter, but we walked around Lower Slaughter, only drove through Upper very quickly. And by crikey, that's a beautiful place. Really, really beautiful.
Beautiful part of the country, and privileged to actually have two sites in that village, one either side of the river. So yeah, very, very lucky with all of our sites, to be really honest. It's we class ourselves as custodians of these properties, but to be part of their history is quite special.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Right, well, let's go all the way back to the beginning then of your career. I mean, you've kind of alluded to it already, but how did that come about in terms of you getting your start in hospitality?
It actually started from my sister, who probably felt a little bit sorry for me and gave me a bit of
As
a
any
job.
good sibling should, right?
yeah. A job on the weekend sweep in the car park, and I, at the time I got £10 to do that. I think the first time I did it, it took me about 6-7 hours, and I quickly wised on, probably during quite a wintry day, that I could probably get the job done properly in about an hour, and loved the fact that I could go into school and say that I was earning £10 an hour back all those years ago.
Yeah.
But winter life gave me some uncomfortable Sundays for sure, and so I was pretty much sitting outside looking through into the kitchen going, it'd be a bit warmer on the plonge, and begged and begged, and eventually my sister gave in and let me do KP, and that's where it all started.
Right. So you went from one extreme to the other, a cold environment outside, to one of the hottest places known to man, the kitchen. I mean, that's where the saying, if you can't stand the heat, right, get out the kitchen. But you obviously could. You craved the heat.
I think it was the other way around. I couldn't stand the cold, so I got into the kitchen. Yeah. It was for sure. Yeah, and I've just been really lucky. I had a job to do, living up to the expectation and reputation of both my sisters who were in that kitchen at the time, and I had to and wanted to do well. And when there was an opportunity to do something else, then I'd jump on it. And there's just been, as there always is in hospitality, some of those crisis days where there's nobody about. And I very proudly said to my sister, I'll do the starters, I'll do the sweets. don't think on this podcast I can say the exact words that she said to me, but by the
No,
end of the
I don't
shift,
think you can.
no, yeah, by the end of the shift, I think she was mildly impressed that I knew at least some of the dishes and did it okay, and then just kept on growing from there. So any opportunity I had was to learn. I'd do my best to soak it up like a sponge. There's
Yeah,
a pun in there somewhere from the kitchen porter days, but
no doubt, no doubt.
yeah,
Especially if you were doing desserts as well.
exactly. Yeah. Oh, double.
Yeah. Yes, very good. And so, and how did things progress from there then? That was, you got your start. Were you hooked immediately, or did it take a little bit of getting hooked?
Oh no, I loved it. I was absolutely in my element. It was a great environment, a huge amounts of social scene. For sure there were some difficult days on service, but actually getting through it as a team and doing more than I thought I was capable of, or us as a team doing more than we thought we were capable, really created a bit of a bond. And then there was always something else that I didn't know. And it was a case of, right, I'll go and learn that. I want to go be able to do that. I want to be able to do it better. And initially, I was in a branded restaurant, and they certainly taught you how to do high covers, high levels of consistency, high levels of discipline, immaculate kitchens, etc. And it was just a really good platform to kind of go forward.
Yeah, yeah. Got you. So, how did it progress from there?
A little bit of both. I moved to a high quality restaurant, a two rosette restaurant at the time, a lovely hotel up in Shropshire, and also did a college course at the same time. And from that, I even had an opportunity to go down to the Savoy. I was listening to the Frank Arnold podcast the other day
Oh, very
with
good.
fond memories of the Savoy.
I can
And
test you on it later if you wish.
maybe on the next one. Maybe on the
Yeah.
next one. And just got an opportunity there again to shine. So it was a massive amount of people who applied. I was very fortunate. I managed to get in on the work experience. And from there was where all the job offers came from, really. And I've just put myself to a point of start at the bottom of the ladder, work your way up, and right place, right time, more opportunities. And then as I came out of London, we were cooking some pretty impressive food. We had a good waiting list on weekends and evenings. But actually, it was when I started to see that at the four rosette level, we wasn't actually making that much money even then. And so I realised I was at a bit of a pathway, crossroads, and it was, do I keep on going and see if you can get to the elusive five rosettes, or do you move out and do something so that you can try and make a bigger career of this? And so I left and joined a group called McDonald Hotels with a brief, really, that the lowest I wanted to cook at was three rosettes. And again, a good friend of mine now gave me an opportunity. It was then just my boss, a good opportunity to take on a kitchen, and worked my way through all the problems that we had, repositioned the kitchen, and again, where we got really good results. I was fortunate enough to then get a regional role from there, and the responsibilities and jobs just kept on coming with that.
Right. Yeah. Was there a point in your journey to this point where you really started to kind of resonate with the more fine dining world, or was it something that you always had in your head? I would like to get into that at some point.
Not really. I'd never really been exposed to fine dining per se when I was young. My father was a butcher, and so we were very lucky enough he was supplying pretty much anywhere that was anywhere in Shropshire. But when you looked at the real top end in London, I'd never had any exposure to that. But what really resonated with me was about the consistency, the attention to detail, the small little points. And my parents are fairly strict and had very good morals and values. And so that resonated with me. And anytime I looked in all of my career, really, when I've looked at our competition or for jobs that I've been lucky enough to have, it always felt like it was impossible for me. There's no way I'd be able to go in and work in this place. And so I just tried to enjoy them as a customer. And lo and behold, I've quite a few years on, I've been fortunate enough to be in some cracking properties.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you are continuing that trend for sure. Very much a food focus in your properties, for sure as well. We will come on to that, of course. But
Mm.
so you're at the stage of your journey. You're a regional chef with McDonald Hotels. Yeah, how did it progress from there? What were you looking after as regional? Actually, what did you have under your guard?
Well, I started at a hotel in Shrewsbury called Albrighton Hall Hotel, and that was my base site. And we'd gone straight in with first inspection, two rosettes with a recommendation for three, and sorted out all the kitchen inspections and food cost to sell pretty quickly within about 6 7 months. And actually, it was quite a key point in my career because the job actually came up before, and I got rejected a couple of times for it, and I couldn't quite work it out myself. We were doing well. We had two rosettes, which was what was we were expecting at a point. We turned the tables of the performance of the sites, and each time I wanted to progress, the answer was always no. And I remember a very difficult conversation at the time, but probably one that's lasted with me to this day. Was along the lines of, if we promote you, then who's going to look after this kitchen? And how are we going to prevent this kitchen from going back to where it was previously? And that rejection was obviously very difficult to receive, but it was a brilliant education. And for me, at a time when I was quite young, to say the team need to be able to deliver this.
Mm,
And so I went back into the kitchens and did precisely that, was to develop the team. Now, Albrighton Hall ended up being on one of the disposal lists. And so I was asked by Donald McDonald and the CEO, David Gile, to go to some other sites. And so my base site was actually Lehman House up in the Lake District. And we were there. We'd had all the inspections. We were trying to get it to three rosettes. Thought it was all done. And having gone on holiday, we were just waiting for the book. And of course, the inspection came in when I was on holiday. And it's it's a bit of a nervous time, but the team did incredibly well. And to this day, I say they won the three rosettes, not me, because it was at that day that they showed the consistency and quality that was expected at that level. And that's really kind of what then helps me to kind of expand in my career. I actually moved over to Sweden for a period of time,
obviously,
to as you do, as you do.
natural
Um,
progression from the Lake
funny
District.
enough, funny enough, to go and retire from my career because I'd been so heavily work focused, and I thought I'm just going to go and take a job. But I started off as a chef and then ended up towards the end as catering director for the group of hotels in Sweden. And again, that was the same thing really. It was looking at the basis of how we operate all of F&B and empower the team to deliver and drive. That was probably my last cooking job, so to speak. And as I came back to the UK, somebody who previously I'd worked with gave me a very peculiar job of deputy general manager and executive chef, just to try and entice me back.
Right.
So half in chef whites and half in VP suit.
Sounds
Very
like a great
interesting locker
uniform.
room.
Yeah, yeah.
um, and again, great opportunity. Just learned how to one, do a lot of diary management and prioritize, but also, more importantly, how to run the other side of the pass, so to speak. The team in the kitchen were great, so I didn't really need to spend too much time in there, and so I had a bit of chance to learn and to develop my skills from space.
A couple of things to unpack in that phase. Why Sweden? Just out of interest.
You always chase the girls, don't you?
I see.
That's,
Right. Say no more.
that's
Say
it.
no more.
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes, they have a habit of. That's how I ended up in London. Maybe I would have ended up here anyway, but yes, I understand 100%.
I mean,
100%. You've got to give these things a chance to flourish, haven't you?
exactly. Although there's not too many Swedish girls in London, so I would recommend going to Sweden if that's your sort of thing.
Yes, but also I think the all joking aside, there's a couple of things in that. One, I mean, just great for the mind and your career, right? To get a change of scenery and to see a different culture doing things in a different way. And what do you think that experience kind of brought to you?
Everyone else at school and college had done this little career break or gap between university. And I was deep in kitchens working at the time, 16, 17, 18 hours a day. And everyone else around me was saying you're missing out. And I was really focused on, no, this is what I want to do. But actually, at a slightly older age and probably with a little bit more means behind me, to just go and step away and go to a different country, learn a whole new cuisine. I was taught classical French, and the Swedes are incredible cooks. Lots of foraging, lots of fermentation. Ironically, fairly on trend here now. So they were decades ahead, and yeah, just really good at balancing flavors. So I remember being really fearful going out there, saying, "Yeah, how are we really going to make an impact for the guests that will come to the restaurants?" But yeah, I'd recommend it to anyone. I think it gets you to see new cultures. It generally kind of makes you realize the good, the bad, and the ugly of everything that's around, and just to have that different culture was great
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a world out there, right? I mean, especially in hospitality. And
for sure.
this is I can't remember who. I think it might have been Harry Murray. Actually, we were talking about the great Harry Murray, I should say, around like when you're a hospitality professional, even if you're on holiday, you're kind of not off duty. And I don't mean that in a stressy way, because you're always looking at like if you're on in a resort in Greece or wherever you happen to be on holiday, there's always somebody doing something that just intrigues you because you're kind of naturally curious about trying to deliver the best possible hospitality, and you get ideas, you get flavor ideas, you get little touches in the hotel ideas, all of that stuff. It never kind of really leaves you. You can be a nightmare to go out for dinner with. I have learned when you go out for people with people, because you're always looking at talking about things in ways that other people don't talk. But actually, from just being passionate about this industry, it never kind of really stops. And I just think it's a really wonderful, brilliant thing about the pleasure of this industry.
I couldn't agree more. I think you just get naturally curious about why somebody's done something a set way, or how they've married flavors together, or how they serve something, or educate you in a certain way. I'd gone with a good friend of mine to Core in London as one of my favourite restaurants, Claire's flagship, and I remember going to my best mate, and he whispered to me, he was like, "I need to go to the toilet. Where do I go?" I said, "Just stand up." And he absolutely thought I was bonkers. And of course, the service staff looked after him incredibly well, graciousness, etc. And he was bouncing back at the table, going, "That is just incredible. How did you know that was going to happen?"
Mm.
And I think there's so many things in hospitality that you deliver that most people just don't see. It's lovely when they do see it. And obviously, a fellow hospitalitarian, if that is a word, it is now.
Easy
But
for you to say. Yes.
yeah, then they truly appreciate that, and it's a little bit of magic for sure.
Yeah, I was reminded of that actually. The evolution of food and drink in Britain has been incredible since I've been in London for 20 odd years, and I'd felt wrongly, I have to say, that the food scene had kind of evolved beyond the big grand dining rooms of old. Until I went to the Ritz a couple of years ago and just had the most exquisite experience. The food was exceptional, of course, but also like the little the attention to detail, where you just you spend the whole time smiling because you're like what my wife had a little table for her handbag,
Hmm.
just put next to, I was just like, this is amazing, this is amazing. And I was reminded that these places absolutely have their place in this industry, because they just take things to a whole new level.
I think it's just that epitome of taking quality to the next level. And there's a time and place for everything, of course, but just the sheer elegance of how a service can be, and more importantly, how it makes people feel.
Mm.
And that's never ending, never change. There's never same day. You can do you can do 50 covers each and every single service, but every single one's slightly different.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I just wanted to pick up on was what you mentioned earlier on around, like, you'll take you out of the kitchen and the team can't cope with it, as it were. But that realization, getting that lesson quite early on, in the sense that actually, do you know what? Yes, okay, I might be the figurehead of the kitchen, but I can't do service on my
Mhm.
own. I need these guys to be able to step up. I need these guys to be able to do it while I'm not there. sort of thing. A really valuable lesson, I think, to get quite early on in your culinary career.
Yeah, I feel really lucky to have had that. I mean, I'll never say that direct to the guy who rejected me so hard, but it really was. And even to this day, there's been the odd time that I've managed to squeeze back into a chef white and have incredible fun on the pass. Like everyone else is holding their head in their hands, and but the fun of the epitome to me in a kitchen is every 20 minutes you show change and everyone has to change section and you've got to keep service going. And I'm like, if I can do that, then I know we're doing good. And everyone goes, it's a great idea, John, but don't do that. Like, why would you do that? And I'm like, come on, we can do this. Like we can get it through. And that cross training, that team, that communication piece. And I'll always put a commie on the pass. I remember being a commie chef wanting to touch plates and looking up to one of the premier sous on the pass going, one day I want to be like that. And it's really weird. You spend all your career learning to cook, and then when you get anywhere close to being good, they put you on the pass or put you in the office. I'm like, what's all this about? What's all this about? What's all that about? And so I'll go and cook on the line, get a commie chef to run the pass. Technically they should have somebody very good on one of the sections, in theory, if I'm on it. And so you can send up a few things, a bit of red herrings, just to make sure that they're on it. Yeah. But my God, the beam of their smile and the shining from their eyes after that service that they did the pass, even if it's only for 15, 20 minutes. But more importantly, they're getting this rounded skill. And it makes it really, really fun. When I was first starting out in hospitality, everything was about repetition. And I spent the first 5 days making tomato concasse when I went to London, and it was an incredible discipline because it ended up in tomato ketchup. But ultimately, that today's world's a bit different to that. And do we need somebody to be spending 60, 70 hours on concasse? No, we don't. But we've got to make it a bit more fun. And I think what's probably not being shouted about enough in hospitality at the moment is there's lots to talk about. It's long hours, it's unsociable, it's hard work, etc. You go into most restaurants and kitchens, hotels, it's not like that anymore. Of course, you have difficult shifts, but the top operators are doing a lot now to really, really make sure that it's an industry that can compete with others.
For sure, and also the point you make there around the fact you can have a nightmare shift, you'll have that in any job in the world. Like that,
sure.
Good days and bad days. It's definitely not something that we should be defined as. And I completely agree with you. The work that's been done in the last few years around trying to ensure that everybody's got the opportunity at least to have a bit more balance in their life. And that's not for everybody as well, by the way. I've had people who are quite happy because that's their happy place to do 70 hours a week. I think it's about not making it the essential to do the job. But if people want to do that because they love it, then we also shouldn't probably get in the way of that either.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a very impassioned industry, isn't it? And when you've got that the gift to be able to give somebody else the gift of great hospitality, it's really, really addictive, addictive. So yeah, it's there's nothing quite like it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get back to your story. So you've got your double-sided uniform. The chef's whites and the deputy GM. Was this a conscious decision by you that you wanted to move into operations? You were given the opportunity to kind of co-run the two roles, I suppose. But until that was presented to you, was it something that you had thought about? Yeah, I'd quite like to make this move.
Not necessarily. In fact, I remember very disrespectfully, me saying very early on in my chefing careers, I'm never going to be a GM because I want to work for a living. That might have been more a reflection of how much work I was doing versus my then GM, possibly. But
yes, probably shouldn't define all GMs by that.
No, not at all, not at all. But it's so no, it wasn't specifically, but I did love learning. And I think I'd worked really, really hard to make sure my department was working sound. And where there was barriers or speed bumps that was caused by something external, then I was really interested to see what was happening, what could we do, how can we do this a little bit different. And I think because I'd been fairly senior in kitchens at a very, very young age, I spent most of my time having to manage people much older than me. And I've certainly come up with problems where, I don't know anything because I'm so young or too young. And the only way I could really respond with that was really just getting on and getting the job done.
Mm.
And again, it was another a grounding very early on that was very helpful. Was you can say as many words as you like, you have to get the results. And so I'd be head down and seeing what was working, what wasn't working. And this was really what helped me transition out of the kitchen. Was if we were having challenges in front of house, or if we were having challenges in sales and marketing, etc., I'd go and sit in the corner with a blank piece of paper and a pen, be silent, and then afterwards I'd go and quiz somebody and say, I don't understand this, or why did you say that? I just want to learn. And again, sometimes I'll be able to put forward a suggestion. Some people were kind and generous enough to allow me to run with them. A lot of them were a complete disaster, and some worked out okay. But having that space to be able to do that allowed me to grow, and therefore allowed us to kind of grow the business. And then, what's not to love? You know your craft. You're in an environment of so many other specialists. In that hotel, we had a cafe, we had Compton Banked in for 1,200 or so big M&E departments, 200 keys, a spa, a membership, etc. It had everything going on. Plus, your peripheral services of sales, marketing, PR, distribution, accountancy, etc. And so I was just in this little fishbowl to learn from as many people as I could and see what works, what didn't, and that became really awe inspiring, and just wanting to keep on seeing how we could do something a little bit better, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I might be a little bit biased when I say this, as somebody who kind of asks questions for a living, but I curiosity for me is possibly the greatest trait in existence. And there's so many reasons why I think that. I mean, notwithstanding what you just said there around your ability to learn, but actually, for me, we need more curious people in the world. This desire to be absolutely, you've got to be right about everything. I mean, it's impossible way to live your life. It's a way better. We had when I first started out in recruitment, I worked for a company. We did sales training, and one of the pieces of training that we got was to make sure that you are the most prepared person in the room. Whilst I kind of agree with the sentiment behind it now, back then I was too young to kind of question it. And I agree that being prepared is a really positive thing to be. But actually, to be the most inquisitive person in the room, I think has way more power, because you're giving the other person the opportunity to speak about what they do and what they are, and be able to then figure out whether we have alignment on how we are able to move something forward, or like in your circumstance, give you the freedom to go and ask that next question, and not kind of make you feel like you can't ask that question. Because when you've got an environment like that in a workplace, for me certainly, I mean, you can do special things, because kind of nothing's off limits in the right way. I mean,
I think, I mean, what a great thing to have as part of that kind of sales culture, really, is to be curious about somebody, because just by being curious, you are giving them a piece of hospitality at that point. You're paying attention to it. It's a Dale Carnegie thing, isn't it? Is pay attention to others, to listen, to use a microphone to help them talk. And just that alone gives somebody a very magical feeling. And if you have the skills and experience over a period of time to be able to take what you hear and notice that there is something that they need, or something even better that they don't know that they need, and drop that in, then that's incredible. I think it was Will Quidara's book when he talks about the famous, the hot dog, and that was just the ability of hearing something and translating that into another special hospitality moment that doesn't have to cost a lot of money. And they are, for sure, when we look at hotels, restaurants, all forms of different hospitality, the ones that are really doing something special are the ones that have got a team really in tune with that and trying to deliver and listen to where they could deliver the edge.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So how did things progress? You're now an operator, as it were, in your journey. How did things move on from there?
Well, I mean, so many difficult shifts I can't even remember, because I realised then I didn't know how to run a function for 1,100 from the other side, or I couldn't use the opera to check a guest in, etc. And if I'm being really honest, I was so used to being back of house, so I didn't really even. I came from some tough kitchens, so I didn't even really need to think about how I showed up and how I needed to be there for guests. So incredible shifts, and again, the team got us through them. Really, just being together. But as it happened, my boss ended up taking on a bigger role elsewhere, and I was fortunate enough to then take the general manager role and work for that company. So yeah, big site as GM, and again, lots of lessons learned. There's, you think, oh, well, if I was in charge, this is what I do, and then you start to realize all the reasons why maybe we don't do that. So yeah, it was. I remember actually we were on an energy saving mission of we wanted to reinvest some of the money that was spending or wasting at the time on utilities and invest it into another part of the business. And I said, oh, it's okay. What we'll do is we'll turn down the swimming pool by 1 degree. Nobody will notice. And my goodness, we'll save so much money. And I'd come out with facts, figures, etc. And not everybody.
On the face of it, it's not a bad idea.
Cracking idea. And it definitely wasn't a unanimous vote, but we did have a majority vote. We did it, and then we did a U-turn about 1.5 days later. It was when you have a membership. I think we had a membership of just over 1,000 at the time in that size. When you have nearly all 1,000 members telling you that it's absolutely bolted cold in the swimming pool, then it definitely teaches you a lesson. I've got to be honest, I went there and I was like, well, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to show that it's not that cold. And yeah, it was a bit cold. So yeah, plenty of those stories to go along for sure.
But I mean, that's kind of, I mean, it highlights the need you have to try these things, right? So you can't just run things the way they are and the way they have been until the end of time. There's, especially in the world in which we live in now, right? You've got to be pretty innovative in terms of, right, where else could we look to without impacting the guest experience, in any way, or at least in, the smallest way possible. And in principle, I can see why something like that would say, in your head, you go, well, what difference can 1 degree make? Really? Well, as we now know, quite a bit.
There's plenty of times in our hotels where we do these things, and for that very specific example, we really importantly did a post-mortem afterwards and said, where did we go wrong here? What did we not consider? And the first thing I said is, listen, I helped make this call. We did something and we got it wrong. We fixed it really quick. We admitted to it and we moved on, and now we've found another solution. And I ask people to embrace this so much in today's world in terms of make the mistake. We're too stagnant as an industry. We need to be a bit more curious. We need to be a little bit more entrepreneurial as we go forward. And of course, we can't make mistake after mistake after mistake, but let's give some things a go. Give it a really good shove. Really get behind it. Get everyone on board. If it works, it's going to be brilliant. And if it doesn't, we reset and we go again. And you do that enough times, you're going to come up with a few gold mines and some really genius kind of moves.
Yeah, no doubt. And you've just given me the title for our chat today: Make the Mistake. Like that's the name of your book as well. You can have that.
5-star hospitality means having the right people in the right place at the right time, and that's exactly where RotaCloud can help. RotaCloud is the online platform that makes planning rotas, recording attendance, and managing annual leave easy. Its simple, drag-and-drop interface lets you create and share rotas with your team in minutes, while our built-in budgeting tools mean you'll know exactly how much you're spending on staffing before sending the rota out. RotaCloud also makes life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request time off, and pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be.
Yeah, so first-time GM, how did you find, I mean, obviously, that's a great example of the sorts of things that just come about, when you are the person who has to take responsibility for the decisions that are made. But how did you find that step up, especially having not come through what many people would classify as the classic route to GM? How did you find all that?
Yeah, I think there's an element of loneliness. There's an element of fear. There's an element, of course, excitement, and that. I was really lucky because I'd already shown to the team that we were focused. This is, I always refer to a North Star. This is our North Star. This is what we're going to. And when you believe in that and you focus on that enough consistently, you start edging towards it. And as you start to edge towards it, then people see the progress they go and they come on the journey with you. And again, the team were incredibly supportive. They were really excited. They were taking great opportunities and taking some chances on doing things. And as soon as you start to get a few of those quick wins under your belt, then it feels so much better. At the start, of course, sometimes you're pushing against the current a little bit, and that's really just about an education, listening to the team, educating, and being focused on not really the here and now, but where that North Star is. And I say to them, don't get distracted. Be curious, listen, learn, etc. But be really committed. If you're going to achieve something, just focus on that and keep on going. And before you know it, you're so much further down the lane that everything else really doesn't matter so much.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's a really great point in there as well around the fact that whatever role you're moving from and into, there is usually a period whereby you've got to find your comfort with it, and that first phase can be uncomfortable because as you say, you can be lonely because now all of a sudden you're the one that people look to guide and all of that, but also you've got to learn like the language of what people need from you up the tree a little bit. You've got to learn, actually now I can't do that job anymore because that gets in the way of that person who's going to be doing that job. But that's where my skill set is. So and kind of step in that. And I think there's a lot, we probably need to give people a lot more credit than we do around that. Actually, when you make some form of transition in your career, upwards, sideways, into a new company, whatever, there is a time frame that you need to give somebody to be able to become, a little bit more at one with it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's that settling down piece and getting your rhythm really. And again, I'm a great fan of looking at the end of this year, what am I going to write that I have achieved, and kind of write that in advance and then work things backwards from there. And it's absolutely about having the right people around you, but if you've got to have that really clear direction and get focused on that. And if you're consistent, I love the 1% margin. If you get 1% better in each that you do, especially in effort, then it will be, and you do that consistently, it'll be a mammoth change. And I say this in the restaurants quite often is consistency beats intensity. You can have one incredible service, but if it's not consistent, it's going to become a problem. So I'd rather be a little bit better each day, but consistently at that point. And there'll be plenty of people who will give you commentary around that and opinions and thoughts, but stay true to yourself and be consistent. And before you know it, there's a whole new story to be able to tell.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're a GM now, and you're on the GM track. What happened next?
Yeah, so I took a GM designate role for Hotel Cardiff, St David's Hotel Cardiff, which is back to my kind of 5-star reads, and it was a slightly aged property at that time, but incredible position. And again, it was a great opportunity to learn leadership, both up and down and sideways, and to take a product and a beautiful hotel. And this was really about really making sure that the team delivered at every angle. And it's one of those hotels where if anybody goes to Cardiff, the rich, the famous, etc., they go there. So it's, again, some real privileged experiences. From there, then I was asked to go to a hotel up in Scotland, or just south of Edinburgh, and that was a real big project, a reposition, a business that needed a bit of a push with its team, with the service and hospitality standards, its results, and its life sustainability. And cracking little team there. We had a great camaraderie, plenty dodgy nights out on the Royal Mile, and that really got us to a point where we presented a hotel at the end that was in a 4 silver star status, recommended for red, commercially doing really well, and a really, really strong bond to this day. That same group of people are still very, very connected. And at the same time, I was really interested about how I developed this GM role. And another one of your podcasters, David Guile, became my mentor. And
I mean, that's not a bad mentor, to be fair.
I mean, there's we've talked about the great Harry Murray, and there's definitely the great David Guile as well. And
A
just
big
an
shout
incredible.
out to David. Massive fan. Maybe this show doesn't exist without him. I'll just say that because he and I'd mooted the idea to him just over a coffee, and I think he was maybe the first person I'd spoken about it outwardly, that I was maybe going to do this thing. And coming away from a conversation with him, I definitely felt I could do this thing. He's just just one of life's great blokes, and an absolute privilege to have gotten to know him through this show for sure.
Couldn't agree more, and he'll be. I can imagine he's blushing right now. He's a very modest man as well, but ultimately he's had such a profound effect on so many people's careers, and even just inspirational stories like that, Phil. That it's just a true top guy and one of our hospitality legends.
Yeah.
And he's been very fundamental in my time. He introduced me to Brownsword hotels 10 years ago, actually, and got me in that role. And soon after I started Brownsword Hotels, we had a few challenges for sure. So it was a bit of a tricky first 3 months. But in month 4, we unfortunately also lost the hotel through fire. And David was one of those. Once the crisis, the initial part of the crisis did slow down, David was one of the first people that I phoned. And I was in a complete panic. I was like, I've got no hotel left. I've just changed jobs. I've got no hotel left, etc. What am I going to do? And I remember very vividly, he said, "You'll be all right. Why do you think you'll lose your job? You'll be okay." And I was like, well, of course I'll lose my job. I don't have a hotel left. And he said, "You'll be all right." And there's still plenty a day that we have that conversation to say 10 years on. And if there's ever a lesson to be learned, there was in terms of keep on going and keep on believing, for sure.
Yeah, but also, I mean, what a horrible thing to have to go through. I don't just mean for you, like anybody associated with the property. I think you're the second story I've had on the show around that kind of circumstance happening. And I can only begin to imagine what it must be like when you get the call to say, or wherever you are, to say that, look, we have this issue here and it's out of control and I don't think we can do anything about it.
It was a real emerging crisis. And again, in the first 3 months, we'd done a lot to reposition the hotel and expectations of how we hold ourselves professionally about how we do this. This isn't just a training. It's just not a tick box. It's not just to sign this form. And I actually archived all of our training when I first joined, and I said, I'm not happy that we're in the right place. We're going to do this again. And we went through and we made sure that the team properly understood what was expected of them. And again, the team did an incredible job on that night. They all did exactly what they were trained to do. They were calm, they were professional, and we're very fortunate. We knew straight away that we got everyone out and they were safe. The fire started next door, and I believe over 1,000 firefighters were involved in that over 3 days. And it ended up taking 3 months to completely clear the site. And I was a really proud moment when those that were involved got recommendations from the chief fire officer. And it's one of those stories that could have been so different. And you can imagine I've bled this story a lot over the last 10 years because it really makes you realise that hospitality is wonderful, but certainly in leadership, you are responsible for some very serious business, and there's no shortcuts there. You have to do things properly. And again, that kind of gives us a bit of a pathway on how we operate our sites today of doing things right properly first time. It might take a bit more time or money, but it's the right thing to do for sure.
Yeah, totally. So you didn't lose your job?
No.
What happened? How was that dealt with?
Well, I was in a regional role, so I was kindly put on some projects initially that was going to help the group, and then my patch evolved, and bit by bit, new hotels came onto the patch, and worked through. And of course, like everybody, we then went through COVID and all the new challenges and difficulties from there. And then as that moved on, that became a group head role, and it just naturally really came just more hotels, more tasks, more responsibility, and more team. We at the time we were recruiting nearly 600 employees across the group, and as far north as Glasgow, as far east as Canterbury, as far west as Devon, so a fair footprint for sure.
Yeah.
But we really got the DNA right across the estate. And then I got a phone call from the office of the Bamford family, and they put a proposition in front of me to go and work for them. And that was a really difficult situation. I had a cracking job with Brown Sword, loved the properties.
You've probably found your people at this point as well. That's what it sounds like. When you get a length of service, and you've been through some stuff together as well. That that it sounds like it was a little bit like home.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and of course, I think the more that you go through, the more that really those bonds are tied. So it's a really, really difficult proposition, and a really exciting one for the Bamford family, both over the Dalesford and also the JCB group of businesses. And so I thought I'd taken an opportunity to go and work with them. And lo and behold, a few weeks later, I got a phone call from the Brownswell family to say, an opportunity has arisen. Would you like to come back and take it? So it's probably one of the hardest conversations I've ever had with Lady B. To say,
I can only imagine.
I'm going back. But everybody there was incredible, and we still have a bit of a laugh and a joke now, which I feel very privileged about. And so it was to come and have a bit of a project on repositioning the hotels, certainly commercially, and take it to the next chapter for the family, so that we can kind of recreate a new experience in hotels to take us into the next generation.
Yeah, and here we are.
We
have landed at to present day, basically. But yeah, I mean, what a great journey. So you are now. That was the call that you got. Was, can you come and please be the chief executive of the organisation? Yeah. And I can understand why that is, almost too good to turn down. One, because you already know the people, you know that you can work with them, and obviously to have the opportunity to oversee this next phase of evolution, and where we go next, and from what is a fantastic foundation. Yeah, I mean that's it's not quite like taking over from Jurgen Klopp from Liverpool, but it's not bad.
No, I mean the hotels were are and always have been such a privilege to work for, and so yes, we had a job to do to try and make sure that we can be sustainable for the generations to come, and we had to be very clever in terms of commercial how we get them back on track and that. And last year was an incredible year for us. We're pretty much beating every target that we've ever had. And so actually, as I say to the team, now's the time that we've got really deep, strong foundations at the core and a great platform to be able to kind of go forward and almost play with it really, and be able to invest further into the teams and into the properties that are wonderful, and maybe create a new chapter of hospitality as well. I'm really focused on how culture can translate into performance, how education can really stretch us, and particularly that mindset of that North Star, that being curious, that how will hospitality really be in 5 years' time? We talk about AI, etc., but hospitality is about people and feeling. Let's use AI to help us to get to that point, but it needs people and interaction and that kind of touchy-feely kind of part of life to make a real difference.
No doubt. And I still have this principle that with all of the efficiency that AI may be able to bring to us now and in the future, actually, in the end, we're going to have all the premium jobs. Because all the
Exactly.
other jobs will be taken by AI.
And I think it's interesting. I've seen a few tech and finance companies that have now used this as an ecosystem for themselves in terms of if you'd like to talk to a human being, then that's the premium level, that's the luxury level. And so we'll for sure go full circle. Yeah, we have to look at efficiencies. Of course we will. I did a slide for one of our conferences to show 20 years ago, I think it was, a salary for a 40-hour contract was around about £11,000, and we're now on 27 or something. And if you throw that forward 10 years or so, it'll be, and on the same trajectory, it would be about £40,000.
Yeah.
So of course we've got to find ways of doing things a little bit different, because we're not charging fourfold for the product and service that we're doing. But again, it just goes back to people and human beings and how we can make them feel.
Yeah, totally. There was something actually from your notes, and you kind of used the word as well when you took the role as CEO, when regaling us with your journey, and it's the word commercial or commerciality, which I think gets a lot of bad press as a means to, we all talk about people, and obviously people are the cornerstone of this industry. You cannot deliver an exceptional experience without brilliant people, and that won't ever change. But your point was around actually educating people in leadership and commerciality from kind of day one
Yeah.
in their journey. And I
Mm.
think it's such a simple idea, but why not, right? Because you get those skills nailed down as quickly as you can. That's gonna serve you well as you climb
Yeah.
the ladder.
For sure. I think it's about the education piece as well. I mean, I saw this when I was in the kitchens, that I learned to cook, and then as I got a bit more senior, then I had to do risk assessments, and I had to do rosters and costings, etc. And it felt like going back down to the bottom of that again. I felt like I'd gone from doing okay to terrible overnight because I had a whole new job task. And it always occurred to me that if I'd known how to do this risk assessment or this costing, what on the day that I learned the recipe, I probably would have been a lot more consistent and better for it. And let's face it, when you're learning and you're getting excited about learning, a risk assessment can be quite exciting at that point. Whereas in later life, when you've had to do a few thousand of them, they're a little bit less exciting,
That's
or
a
be
really
incredibly
lovely
important.
political way of putting that, for sure.
But and so it's the same today. Is that every opportunity we always talk about, can we be more efficient with our investments in our spending, not to make more profit, but to be able to reinvest that into our team, in terms of our property, in terms of a bit of entrepreneurialism, and say, how could we change this guest journey slightly? And ultimately we need to be able to pay for it. We're really privileged, as we don't have any debt in our business. So everything that we do, everything we make, we reinvest back in. That is an incredible, fortunate position. And I just say, well, if we can save a few pence and scale that out across the entire estate, what can we do with this to really make a difference? Make a difference to the team, make a difference to guest journey, etc. And now we've repositioned our business. We're really in an exciting point now where we can really play with what that is. And it's been a tough learning for some. We've come through a bit of a journey to get to that point. But absolutely, if we got that as holistic learning for everybody from day dot, the industry would move even faster than it is now. When I refer to sustainability, I also talk about having an industry that can still afford to be around. We see the news about pubs, restaurants, etc., and how difficult it is for everybody. So the quicker we can get this education out, and we can create this culture of being curious and entrepreneurial about how we operate, then I think we'll be able to step forward quite significantly, in the very near future, and that's really exciting now.
Yeah, I think the thing that I've learned as I get older, the risk of sounding like my parents, is that actually knowledge gives you calmness in your ability to make decisions. And
Mhm.
actually, a lot of the knowledge you can't get without having experience. Like that's you get more knowledge with the more experience you have. That's just a fact of life. But if you give like key fundamental parts of business as part of the initial phase of somebody's learning, then that gives a bit more serenity into leadership. It gives a bit more serenity into commercial decision making, and therefore you create more stable environments in which people can operate, and more growth focused environments where people can come into and feel like they immediately connect and belong, and I can see a future here, and all of the things that that we probably have struggled with over a great deal many years as an industry on the wider sense of things. But I think there's a real propensity to really want to tackle this properly, and what you've kind of suggested, I feel like is a well, I mean, it sounds like a bit of a no-brainer, to be honest.
I think so, and it's so exciting to see various formats through the industry. Obviously, just Acorn Awards just being announced, etc., and seeing what new talent is coming up with and their ideas to go forward. And if there's a few of my peers that we get together and try and put some weight behind these individuals to give them the connections or a platform to kind of take those forward. And there's some cracking ideas, brilliant energy, and it challenges the status quo. And I think that's where getting comfortable with being slightly uncomfortable is where some real magic happens. And the younger ones, I'm also now making myself sound a bit older. The younger ones have got some cracking vision to kind of take that forward.
Yeah, we're still young men, John. We're still young men.
Yeah, keep believing.
To give yet.
Keep believing.
yeah, absolutely. There was another thing actually I really loved from the stuff that you've kindly sent me ahead of our chat, which was just a really lovely ethos around appreciating your own progress. Something that I don't think we really talk a lot about, and it's almost like the 1% thing that you were talking about earlier on. When you do that, and it just becomes this incremental improvement in your business and your life and whatever you apply that to. In the moment, you don't really feel it because it's just happening. That growth and development is happening. But if you take a moment to reflect back what if you started a year at X and you finished it at Y, sometimes you can look at that gap and go, holy cow, like, look how far I've come as a human being, look how far we've come as a business and whatever. And actually, I think it's just it's a lovely idea, just from a very human perspective, to just give ourselves a little bit of a pat on the back sometimes as to, how much crap we have to deal with and actually how we come through it and can sometimes flourish on the back of it.
It's such a powerful tool, and it's great to see some of our team really picking that up and just getting people to stop a moment. We good day, bad day, difficult day, etc. Let's just stop. Let's just see. Let's gather ourselves and see where we've come on the journey. And there's always a drama on the horizon or happening, etc. There's always something in the news that's going to make or break something. And I don't think people in hospitality do enough really to really showcase that. So. And even having the privilege of doing like a podcast like this, I remember a conversation with David, and he said, "What are your aspirations?" And I didn't know. I'm just doing my job. I'm getting to this North Star, etc. And I think one day I just burst out, "I'll be a CEO." And David was the first person to congratulate me and say, "Well, you got to where you want to be." And I was like, "Well, I didn't really want to be as such. It wasn't I was completely. I just turned up here, and I've learned a lot from David, and that was one of those to kind of just stop and reflect and seeing our team at Brownswood Hotels and the journey. We've got incredible service, 20 years service as general managers. Most have been with us over 5-6 years, navigated all the changes that they have and the achievements that we see, and not just the new achievements, but the consistent achievements. And our little one, will turn around and see an award, and it's really interesting to see how he reflects on that award. Of this is the greatest thing ever, and there's sometimes where I go, well, we did win it the last 3 years, but actually now I see it totally different because it's still incredible, and the hard work that goes into it. So yeah, absolutely. Stop, reflect, and appreciate where you got to, and that just helps you kind of reset, ready for the next chapter.
Yeah, totally, and brings back that serenity again. And a bit of humility around. There's nothing wrong with patting yourself on the back for doing something good. We need more of it, frankly.
Mm.
To be honest. A couple of other things before I let you get on with your evening. We are eating into the Friday night of things, because I'm sure you and I are both rock and roll now, and we're about to head out on the tiles. But there was actually a really lovely sentence that just came up on the forum that you said as well. And actually, you've mentioned luck a couple of times in this journey. You mentioned luck on your bio as well. Just a lucky guy who started out as a KP and is now a CEO of a hotel company. But actually, there's the phrase "earned luck." And this kind of speaks very much to one of my favorite sayings of all time, which is a Gary Player golfer who said the more I practice, the luckier I get. I too have also been fortunate throughout my career to have been involved in some really incredible things. There is a point where you have to stop and think, well, why do good things keep happening to me? So we have to believe that good things can happen to good people. Otherwise, we're all doomed.
I guess I'm just another employee, so I'm another a number on the payroll, just the same as I was as a KP. So we're all one team. I have deep respect for the responsibilities that I have for the team and for our guest journey, and of course stakeholders and board. And I feel very privileged to have had the opportunity to do what I do day to day. And for sure, there's been a lot of luck in there. I don't disagree. Ultimately, you've still got to be in the right place at the right time and have done the right things to be able to be in that place. So there's definitely an earned luck there. And that's why I say, if you don't get distracted, if you have your focus, those times will come. And my favorite is do the right thing even when nobody's looking. And ultimately somebody will see. There's some fantastic leaders out there, and they definitely are seeing those moments for sure.
Yeah, totally. There's a story I'd love to enter into, which is to do with A-listers. You actually did mention A-listers earlier on. I thought we might sneak it in at that point, but yes, apparently you're quite calm when it comes to dealing with A-listers.
This is from a life being completely devoted initially to food and cooking, and so whenever anybody says, "Have you watched this film?" the answer is always no. And the response generally is, "I can't believe you haven't. You have to watch this. It's a brilliant film." And I was like, "What was you doing?" And I was like, "Well, I was probably peeling carrots or something when I was 12 or 13." But take that forward to we're still to this day very privileged with who guests that like to come to our hotels. But one particularly in Cardiff, and a member of staff came up and was very excited and said, "You are so cool." Now, Phil, nobody has ever said I'm cool, ever. So this completely blew my mind. And I said, I don't understand. He was like, "You were so cool with this guy, and this is how bad it is." I still don't know who that guy is. And I was like, "Well, which guy?" And she pointed out, and it was allegedly some very, very top hitting, famous A-lister. And of course, I'd been so cool because I just treated them as another customer, because that was exactly who they were to me. So it's there's some. I found a positive in not having my late night movie nights or music gigs.
Yes, and very discreetly done, by the way. In terms, you did not reveal the film. You have not revealed the A-lister. It's just the premise of the whole thing, as any good steward of hospitality would do. Keep discretion at the forefront of everything, unless you can tell us.
That might be for another time.
Okay, very good. That will go on. We'll put that on the beer list. I'll do a separate podcast, the anonymous files or something like that. But no, look, thank you so much, John. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Some wonderful ideas. This is just why I love doing this show. I always learn something from everybody that I have on board. No different to you as well. And I would actually just really love to end this chat just with, again, this is a line from the stuff that you sent me before we had this chat, which was the way that you summed yourself up. I just thought, I mean, it's kind of perfect. A foodie, a believer, and a striver. I mean, you're a man after my own heart. Those three things are right at the heart of what Phil Street is as well. And no, it's just been an absolute joy to spend some time with you.
Thank you, Phil. I mean, I feel really privileged to be given a little bit of spotlight and talk about my little journey in our incredible industry. And absolutely hats off to you. I've lost count now of how many series it is.
So have I.
But it's a great listen, nipping from one meeting to another, and yeah, it's another form of fantastic hospitality. So yeah, it's a real credit to you.
Thank you very much. That's very kind. And yeah, wish you guys all the very best with the next phase of the Brown Sword journey.
Thanks very much, Phil.
Thank you. Cheers. And there we have it. A fantastic chat with John on leadership, luxury hotels, frozen swimming pools, Swedish adventures, and the strange journey from kitchen porter to CEO. A massive thanks to him for giving up his time. We will, of course, be back next Wednesday with another amazing story from hospitality. So until then, have an awesome week, and I'll see you then.